All right, welcome back, everyone. Today we have a very special training with Vance Lee. He's going to show you how he sold over $1.3 million in pre-orders before spending even $1 on inventory. So first off, I'd like to welcome Vance. How's it going, man?
Going amazing, man. Thanks for having me again.
Awesome, awesome. So again, my name is Gary Huang. Today's training is brought to you by the Seven Figure Seller Summit. Our events are really help you guys, the e-commerce seller, the Amazon seller, build, grow, scale, and exit your businesses. So Vance Lee is actually an alumni speaker of Seven Figure Seller Summit. And in today's training, he's this expert when it comes to crowdfunding. I know like a lot of you guys have struggles with cash flow, like buying inventory, those purchase orders can really rack up. There's a lot of financial risk involved. We had several hundred people register for this webinar live, and also the replay will be available. So I shared the data, your questions with Vance, so he's going to try to answer as many of them as he can. His training is going to be very thorough. It's going to be about 1 hour long, so I encourage you guys to turn off those notifications and really try to lock in and focus, because I believe this can really help you as you try to grow your business in a model that kind of turns the traditional Amazon FBA model upside down, because his model doesn't require you to invest thousands of dollars in inventory to start out. So for those of you guys that don't know Vance, wait, before I introduce him, because we are live, guys, if you can take a moment to type in the chat your name and where you're joining us from, that would be great. I really appreciate that. So meanwhile, Vance Lee, he's raised over $7 million in successful launches. He's broken records in crowdfunding. Like he two of his own product launches achieved the #1 most funded campaign in the niche that he's in. He's ranking in the top 1% of crowdfunding projects of all time. So he really knows his stuff. I met Vance in person several years ago in Hong Kong at another conference that we both attended. He's a super sharp guy. He really knows his stuff. He's living the dream. Like for a lot of people, he's the digital nomad, and I'll let him tell more about his story in a minute. And then he also has a professional background in branding and marketing. So he was a branding and marketing strategist in a corporate world in North America before he started becoming an e-commerce entrepreneur. And then he started out selling on Amazon in 2015. Since then, he really is a master when it comes to crowdfunding to launch products and grow brands. So Vance, welcome again. Can you share where are you joining us from today, and why should people join? Why should people attend the training today?
First of all, thank you for that amazing introduction. I don't think I can live up. I don't know if I can live up to that, all of that hype. So we'll do our best. But yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'm joining from Bali. So like you said, I'm what they call digital nomad. I don't really like that term so much, but I'm pretty much traveling and working at the same time. So it's an amazing place to be at the moment. But yeah.
Awesome. And why should people join the training today?
Good question. I think if you're looking to flip the e-commerce model upside down, so instead of having to pay for inventory first and really put in a lot of cash to risk, essentially not necessarily knowing what's going to happen before that, or if you want to improve your cash flow, the whole idea is how can we flip this model upside down so that you can get pre-orders before investing in inventory and making sure that this is going to be a way that allows you to scale your business and also start building an audience to scale your brand. So it's a really, really awesome way to not only get cash, be profitable on your launches, but then also use this as a foundation to grow and scale your brand. So that's why I think you should stay if you're considering whether or not you should stay.
Awesome. All right. So I'd like to give some quick shout outs to people joining us live today. Welcome, Jonathan, Robert from Houston, Jonathan from Houston, Abraham from LA, Sarda from Sydney, G'day, Ayman from Morocco. Wow, it's 2 a.m. over there. All right, we hope it's gonna be super value packed for you, Ayman, and you won't fall asleep. And Vanessa from Singapore, and Allison from lockdown in Auckland. Great to see you. Allison down in New Zealand. So we have a global audience. Excellent.
Amazing.
All right. So the training is going to be about 60 minutes until the end of the hour. And if you stick around until the end, Vance is going to offer a special bonus for you guys. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat first, and then we'll get to them in the end. All right, guys. And for those of you watching the replay, we did have over 200 registrations with your questions. I did share them with Vance. I apologize. We won't have time to get to all of them, but we'll get to as many as we can. And then there's an opportunity at the end that you can connect with Vance as well. All right. So without further ado, Vance, let's start the show.
Let's rock. Let's do it. Okay.
All right.
Can you hear me? I'm live. I'm good.
Yeah, everything looks and sounds great. Let's go.
Amazing. Let's just dive right into it. So I'm not going to waste too much of your time with an intro because I think Gary did a really good job. But I started as an Amazon seller with FBA in 2015. So since then, I've made a lot of freaking mistakes. And my second year, where I got really ambitious, I lost about $150,000 in just huge mistakes related to a lot of things we're going to talk about today. But over time, I was able to discover Kickstarter, which is a crowdfunding platform that allows us to get pre-orders. And that became a really interesting channel for me to launch products on. And that's how that's how it brought me to where we are today. So I'll tell you a lot more about that as we go. The reality right now is with Amazon and lots of e-commerce, it's really challenging because we're seeing a lot of competition. It's becoming more risky, more costly for launches. And we're encountering people with lots of massive budgets. And what that's causing is increase in PPC prices. It's super challenging to be able to rank and become successful in that sense. But it's doable. It's just a matter of what it is that we can do that allows us to tip the odds a little bit in our favor. But our goal is obviously at the end of the day to build something that's sustainable, and hopefully, you either choose to keep it as a lifestyle business or you choose to sell it as an exit. But either way, we're looking to build something that's sustainable, and that's extremely important. And it's becoming really challenging to only do this on Amazon. So. We have three main goals today. I'm going to go fast because there's a lot of stuff to cover. So, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, like Gary mentioned, and we'll do our best to cover as much of this as possible. So, first one is we want to talk about. I'm going to breeze through cash flow and understand why this is super important for our business growth. The second one is we want to understand why pre-orders using Kickstarter is the only way that you can launch your product and build your brand without upfront inventory risk. So this is super cool. Most people have heard about Kickstarter a little bit, but they don't know how to use it. So we're going to talk about that today. And yes, you can sell on Amazon and Shopify after this is just a launch platform. So that's one of the most common questions I get. And then third, we're going to learn about the Launch Accelerator Blueprint. So this is our process on how to essentially allows you to have a successful launch while building a community of fans that are going to be supporting your product in the future and then your future product launches. So this is going to be extremely cool for anybody that's looking to build a list, build a community of sustainable followers that's going to be supporting the brand. So the common FAQs, I've answered that one already. I answered the first one already. Kickstarter does not replace Amazon or Shopify. It's the launch platform that allows you to launch a new product. Do you need 100% custom revolutionary product? And does it only work for certain niches like electronics? Nope, it works for all categories. And can you launch on Shopify and Amazon after it? Yes, you definitely can. And this is going to help you because by the time you develop the Kickstarter and launched it, you have all the assets it takes you to launch on Kickstarter or Shopify or whatever channel of your choice. So I'll throw these out of the way so we can address that so we can move on to talking about who this is for. So if you're new and you're launching your first or second product, this can really help you set the foundation for your brand. If you're an experienced seller and if you've launched a handful of products already, this is going to be something that's going to be super interesting to you because it really does change the way that you think about e-commerce, and it makes it a lot more profitable, a lot less risky, and it allows you to build something a lot more sustainable. So this is going to be really valuable for you. And so I want to start off by talking about who this is for in terms of some examples, because a lot of people wonder, is this something that I could use? So one of my favorite examples is this company called Ferris Wheel Press from Canada. And they wanted to start selling online and start building a brand, but they didn't have any e-commerce experience at all. So these guys sold pretty standard products like pens and notebooks. They decided to launch on Kickstarter. And what they did was they launched 3 successful campaigns in a pretty short period of time that raised over $400,000. And in the process, they gained over 3,000 fans. And this allowed them to really build this foundation for their brand. So after Kickstarter, what happened? They grew a massive social media following on Instagram, so over 60,000 followers. and they had a lot of people creating YouTube videos. We call this user-generated content everywhere. So they're getting positive reviews everywhere. And this allowed them to bring their brand to a point where they had essentially a real brand, and it became really sustainable afterwards. So they made a strong name for themselves in this kind of weird niche, which is stationery. They have 50,000 monthly visitors to their e-commerce store website, and then now they're being carried, their products are being carried on a lot of niche stationery stores. So this allowed them to grow into a real business and a real brand. Another example, this super weird example called Fly by Jing. It was a female solo entrepreneur who had a product idea. She's a chef. She wanted to launch a hot sauce. She's a chef, so no e-commerce background, no experience in launching products in e-commerce at all. And she decided to launch her first product on Kickstarter. So she raised over 120K on Kickstarter, and she got a lot of recognition for this campaign. And she built a small following of fans, of 1,600 fans. And from there, she really, really made a name for herself and grew. So now she has over 60,000 followers on Instagram. There's people really going crazy about this hot sauce that are making their own recipes and sharing about this everywhere. And eventually she commercialized really in a lot of different ways. So she's selling on Amazon. I think this number is a little bit higher now. I think she might be doing over 200K a month on Amazon selling hot sauce. She has lots of organic traffic to her Shopify website, over 60,000. And she's used this opportunity with a successful Kickstarter launch to be able to sell in Whole Foods, Costco, and Target. So now having all these different new channels for her to essentially make her product more diversified, but also allow her to be able to scale her business in different ways that are going to lead to more revenue streams. So not only e-commerce, but all these other channels. So how are you going to get value from today? We're going to cover this in 3 parts. So we're going to talk about cash flow. We're going to talk about how pre-orders and Kickstarter works. And we're going to talk about the process that we're going to go about doing this. So stay until the end, because that's where we're going to answer all the questions, and you'll see the full breakdown of how everything works by that time. And there's going to be a really cool, unique opportunity that we're working with Gary on to offer the community here to be able to give you guys resources, something that's really going to help you if you're launching a product in the near future. So the best way to benefit from this presentation is to really think about how what we're talking about can apply to your next launch. So if you're thinking, how can this apply to my next launch? This is really going to make the biggest difference in making sure that you get the value. So let's dive right into it. First is cash flow. So I'm going to just breeze through this section because I think cash flow is something that is understood, but it's not, I want to give a little bit of background on why pre-orders is going to be really important. So a lot of people talk about sales numbers. We talk about 7-figure sellers, 8-figure sellers, but nobody talks about how much cash and how much cash flow is going to make the difference between your business failing and becoming successful. And that's because if you can have a profitable business, an e-commerce business, but if you don't have healthy cash flow, you could be at a huge risk for having your business potentially just go bankrupt with not enough cash. So this is a really important part that a lot of people are not talking about. So what is cash flow? In an e-commerce business, cash flow is really the net inflow and outflow of cash from purchasing your inventory and overhead expenses, including marketing, and the amount of time it takes to recover those profits from sales. So this is it's understanding how cash is interacting with your business over a period of time, not just profits and taking into account revenue and expenses. So most people think profits are if you're profitable, you're cash flow positive, and that's definitely not true, because profit only takes into account revenue and expenses, but it doesn't take into account the time of which you have a cash available so that you can do things with that cash. So it's very possible to be to be profitable for the year and be cash flow negative, and we'll talk about why that's a huge issue. So if you're cash poor, what that means is that you don't have enough cash to pay for your next inventory order or pay for things like PPC or marketing. You're mostly going to be in a situation where you're funded by debt, or maybe you're getting loans, or you're just injecting a lot of your cash into the business because it's not able to sustain itself. And this is usually happening because you have a long lead time to recover your investment from each order. So if you're putting in $10,000, it's taking you a long time, months, maybe 6 months, 8 months, 10 months to start seeing some of that money come back. And what this means is it's really difficult, almost impossible, to successfully launch new products. And it's going to be making it really slow for you to scale those products and scale your brand. Healthy cash flow is the complete opposite of that, where you have a lot of cash available to invest in inventory, invest in operating expenses, make sure that you scale your product fast and also invest in new products in the future. And this is going to be the most crucial element for you to have a successful e-commerce business, to be able to have your cash flow well managed. So I'm not going to touch on all these 4 factors that hinder product launches, but I'm going to point the attention to number 4, which is one of the biggest challenges right now with the landscape of COVID and really the longer lead times to restock inventory. This is creating a lot of issues because we had cash flow issues before. But now, if you're putting in an order and it's there's a 6-month inventory delay, or there's an issue with manufacturers when it comes to raw materials, you're not going to see that for an even longer period of time, and that means that your cash flow is even more. you're having even more challenges with cash flow, and that's leading to bigger challenges in being able to launch products. And this is going to be a really big challenge for us Amazon sellers as we continue growing our brands. So I'm just going to give a quick example of how cash flow can be an issue, even if you're making sales and profitable. So if you're selling a product at $30 a day, 100 units a day, $5 profits, you are going to be seeing on paper a healthy business. So 1 million in sales and 180K profits for the year. But even with this, it's possible that you could be in debt, or you could be cash flow negative. So by the end of the year, it's possible that you actually have negative 100K in cash, which means you're in debt. And this happens for the things that we mentioned in the previous slide. But essentially, the idea is that if you're making lots of sales and you're profitable, you might not have enough cash to continue operating a business. So this is extremely scary. And all these factors are going to be why considering pre-orders and having a different model that will help you is going to be extremely important. So how do we fix poor cash flow? I'm not going to address point 1 and 2. These are things that a lot of people have spoken about in different ways, and I'm not a crazy expert on supply chain, for example. But what we want to talk about is using creative strategies like Kickstarter to be able to get essentially pre-orders and upfront orders before you have to invest money into your next inventory order. So let's talk about what that looks like and why this is going to completely flip your launch model upside down. So first of all, we have to understand what Kickstarter crowdfunding is. So this is a really interesting model that's not so understood. It's essentially a model where customers will essentially what we call back, in other words, pre-order your product with the expectation of getting it first later on when it's manufactured. So this is mainly used for launching a product, and it doesn't replace any other e-commerce platform that exists, as I mentioned earlier. We use this to raise funds for initial manufacturing order and to start building an initial audience of people that are going to be supporting your product and your brand. Of course, we recognize how important this is going to be to scaling a long-term sustainable brand. So there's 2 main platforms that you would have heard about. Kickstarter is the main one that we're going to be talking about. So going forward, I'm just going to say Kickstarter, but there's another platform called Indiegogo that's growing in size as well. So these are the 2 main crowdfunding platforms that all of the action happens on. And what's really special about these users? Well, Kickstarter started as a way to support unique products. It's evolved since then, where founders and creators of interesting products will go and say, hey, we need your help to bring this product to life. So what this attracted was, in the early stages of Kickstarter, it attracted the wealthiest e-commerce shoppers in the world. And we know this because these people are willing to pay for inventory or to pay for an order of something that they might never get in the future because it doesn't exist yet. So these people were early adopters, and these people that supported projects were extremely passionate about these projects that they got involved with. And they were really passionate, and they wanted to bring this and share this. So these became some of the most vocal sharers that supported products and brands as they launched. And on average, these people are really interesting because they browse these sites like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and they look for products that they want to support and buy. So on average, what we call most of these people they're called super backers. So in their lifetime, they actually actively look and support 6 or 7 projects. Many of them that have supported my projects in the past have supported over 20 and 30 projects. So it's very crazy that these people are there. So you know how Amazon works. So I don't need to dive into this, but Amazon is the traditional model where you have to invest in inventory, and hopefully at some point later on, you can recover the inventory, the money from the inventory, and then start selling more later on. How does Kickstarter work? This is a little bit different, and this is important for us to understand why this is going to change the way that you launch. Is with Kickstarter, you launch a limited time campaign. So you launch a campaign of up to 60 days. During this campaign, people are going to be pre-ordering your product. So they're going to place an order that they know they're going to be expecting to get in the future. After the campaign closes, you're going to get paid from Kickstarter within 15 days. And from there, when you get the money, you're going to place your first order with your supplier. And once you get the orders, the inventory, then you fulfill to your backers. And then from there, you launch to whatever platform of your choice. So this is an example of a towel. It's a towel. These guys raised over 330,000, and they had about 13 days left to go. So this wasn't even their full campaign. But this is important to know that all this was pre-orders, and people were purchasing this before they are accessing the product.
Vance, sorry to interrupt. Can I ask a quick question? I think this is very important what you're covering on the last slide. When you say that you get paid from Kickstarter in 15 days, I mean, that's awesome. You're getting your cash before you place a purchase order from your factory. But at the same time, how much in fees does Kickstarter take from what you raise?
Yeah, it's a great question. They take a 5% platform fee, and then the really standard is it's going to be this 3% of a payment processing fee. So if you run Shopify, you'll understand that. So it's really the 8% that comes out of the amount of the funds raised.
Awesome. And then you create a list as well, right? Like let's say they have 3,429 backers. Do you get emails from all 3,400?
Yeah, so this is the cool part we're going to talk about in a second, but you get access to all of these people right away. Yeah, no, that's a great question. You get access to this list immediately. And it's unlike Amazon, where Amazon tries to restrict your access to these people that are purchasing your product.
They just cover your eyes. You don't even know who you're selling to.
You get it right away, and you can contact them right away, even during the campaign when it's not over. You can start asking them to help share the campaign, and it becomes really cool. So this is something that's pretty uncharted territories when it comes to e-commerce and launching products, because it's just we're used to the Amazon model where Amazon controls everything. And this is going to really change the way that we see building a list, building an audience, and we'll see why that's so important to have that audience. And I'm sure you've had a lot of people talk about this in the past, the importance of growing a list and building an audience.
Awesome, great, Vance. Let's keep going.
Yeah, let's keep at it. So, why, if you compare these side by side, you'll understand why this is going to be so favorable for us sellers. And I'm going to kind of break down the main reason why this is favorable, and something that we've hinted at already up until this point. So the main reason why this is favorable is you only need two things to launch your campaign on Kickstarter. You need one, a prototype. So it has to be a working prototype. So in this example, it's a working towel. If you have a towel and you're able to take photos of it, then it's great. If you have a kitchen product, you have to physically have the product as a prototype to show that this product exists. So that's important for you to have as a prototype. And the second thing is what we call the campaign page. So the campaign page is essentially equivalent to your product listing page on Amazon. And from there, you need photos, a copy video. So all the standard stuff that you need for a traditional launch. What we're doing is we're just doing this in a different order, because what you don't need is you don't need to invest thousands of dollars in inventory or 3,000 units or whatever it is. If you're going to be in a competitive niche, it might be more than 3,000 units. So the idea is you just need your listing to launch, and you're preparing the things you would normally prepare for your product listing page on Amazon, but you're just pushing this out in advance, and you're using this to get pre-orders. So that's why this is favorable in a nutshell for sellers. So why is this a better launch strategy? There's lots of different reasons, but I'm just going to cover the top 5 reasons why people have given us feedback for it, based on people we've worked with, based on people that are working with the model, of why this is a better launch strategy. So I'm going to go through each of these individually. This is just one of my campaigns, the Arctic, and I'll talk a little bit more about this. But we raised almost about 950,000 after upsells with this campaign. That was one of my first campaigns that I launched on Kickstarter. It was a cold brew coffee maker. So the first benefit is that it flips the e-commerce model upside down, and it eliminates risk. So with the traditional Amazon launch model, I've hinted at this already, there's a significant upfront investment that's required for not only inventory, but things like launches and giveaways. And essentially you start cash flow negative. And it's possible that your launch may or may not be successful, but you're in a situation where you're already injected all of this cash into this launch, hoping that it's going to be successful. Well, with our approach to launching on Kickstarter, this is really different. Launches and pre-orders, like I said in the previous slide, this only requires a prototype to begin getting pre-orders. So all you need to do is you need to develop the product, invest in the assets to be able to make sure that you're presenting this in a way that's appealing, and you're ready to go. So essentially, you're eliminating the inventory risk by getting pre-orders in advance and the cash. So you get paid in advance, then you can spend money on inventory. So this really, really changes the entire model. And for anybody that's launched a product, you understand the risk involved in launching a product. You understand the cash that goes into investing in inventory. This is one of the biggest benefits of using a pre-order model like Kickstarter in the way that we do it. The second one is you're profitable and cash flow positive at launch. So with traditional Amazon launches, this is just not the case. Traditional Amazon launches are costly, and the launches are never profitable. You're not expecting to be profitable at the launch. You're treating the Amazon launch like it's a sunk cost, and you hope eventually that you will recover the costs from the product if it becomes successful. And if your product does rank, it can take many months, like we talked about earlier, to be profitable. So you might not see your cash come in for some people if it's in a competitive category for 10 months, 12 months, 16 months before you start seeing the cash from your initial inventory investment. So this is a very cash flow negative or cash flow poor model. So with our approach to launching on Kickstarter, the idea is that Kickstarter launches are profitable immediately. So apart from investing in the prototype and investing in the assets, which you would do with the Amazon launch, you're going to be immediately profitable once you get paid. And then from there, you invest in the inventory. Maybe you order a little bit more so that you can launch on Amazon or Shopify or wherever you choose, but then you're immediately cash flow positive. And this changes the trajectory of your business. You're not always trying to catch up to getting cash. You get the cash right away. And this is going to make a huge difference in the way that you grow and scale your business. So those two are related. So that's why I summarize them here. So being able to eliminate the risk by flipping the model, and also to be profitable and cash flow positive right at launch. This makes a huge difference when it comes to the financials of your e-commerce business, whether it's your first product or your 10th or 15th product. This is going to make a massive difference.
Vance, sorry to interrupt. Will you talk about the time frame? Because I can see from this graph, this is very useful, and a lot of people had questions about how long does this take. Will you be speaking about that?
Yeah, we can address this at the end in terms of the time frame for launches and that type of thing.
Okay, yeah, because I think it's very interesting, because traditionally the Amazon launch, you got to wait for that factory to manufacture the orders, and right now with all the delays, the perfect storm of supply chain, the backup at the port of Los Angeles, West Coast, etc., it's taking much longer than before, right? But with Kickstarter, if you can flip that around, then would this even be faster than an Amazon launch? I mean, that's something that just occurred to me as I'm
it would for sure be faster. Yeah, 100% it would be faster. Because all you need is a prototype and you're good to go, and all your assets.
Yeah. Okay, awesome.
Cool. So the next one is something that's super important that Gary just hinted at earlier when he asked me the question, is that you're using this as a way to build a list of what we call just ready to buy fans. And this allows you to have a long-term sustainable brand, because with Amazon, it's really difficult to grow a sustainable brand. Why? Because at the end of the day, your customers are not really your customers, they're Amazon's customers. And when you don't have a list, launching a product is hard. Launching your next product is hard. Growing a real brand is really difficult because you don't have access to the people that are supporting your first products or your second product. And I've had this issue before. When I launched a product in the kitchen category, I launched my second and third product. Nobody knew anything about my first product. It made no difference that I was this supposed brand on Amazon. And this is really what limits the value of your business, especially when it comes to exit, but also the potential of your business in being able to launch products quick, more successfully. And this is a huge deal. So with our approach to launching on Kickstarter, your backers or your customers become your fans right away, and you can talk to them right away. This is what Gary was asking about earlier. You can immediately contact them. They become a part of your list. And not only that they feel really invested in your brand and they want to support you. And at the end of the day, this allows you to grow your first initial kind of, first group of fans. And so with our first coffee product launch to our second product launch in the same niche, our second coffee product raised about $220,000. And from our first group, first group of customers, it wasn't a massive repeat number of customers. We had about 5% of our customers come back to support our second product when we launched. 5% doesn't sound like a lot, but that's $40,000 of sales in that launch alone. So it doesn't sound like a massive number of people, but this led to $40,000 of sales right away in the pre-launch. So you can see how this can really expedite the growth of your future product launches, but also expedite building a brand where people care about your future product launches rather than just being an unknown seller on Amazon. So the other thing is that it really allows you to establish your credibility. So if you're successful on Amazon, you can get good at selling Amazon, but it doesn't really produce any recognition or brand credibility outside. With a successful launch, you start really being able to build, this is our take campaign that I mentioned to you earlier. Not only does a successful campaign, allow other publications and blogs and people to pick it up and start talking about it, you have this asset with the Kickstarter campaign that stays there forever. So you have immediate SEO that's usually, if you search for your product or brand name, if you search for mine, it's usually within the top 3 of Google always. So if you look up the brand name or our product name, it'll always show up, and then people see the results of your campaign publicly, so they recognize that there's credibility behind your brand. So and all these examples, I want to mention that we did not pay for press. These people just picked up the product because they thought it was a really cool idea, and they just wanted to talk about it. So this is essentially just free publicity. You can pay for press as well, but we generally try to avoid paying for this as much as possible. And finally, diversify your business. So this is one of the biggest challenges we talk about with Amazon businesses, is that it's not diversified. What happens if Amazon decides to just shut you down one day, or just say, hey, you know what, we're not going to allow for this XYZ to happen? Your business is at risk. So it's important for us to be able to diversify. And with us, being able to launch a successful campaign on Kickstarter allowed us to be able to scale on our own website. There's a lot of third-party websites that are selling our product. We also opened up our opportunity to wholesale. So we have right now our products being distributed in 13 different countries. I never, when I started e-commerce, thought that I'd go into wholesale, but people started reaching out to us and saying, hey, we started a campaign. Can we carry your product in Saudi Arabia or in Korea? And we started selling to these people, thousands of units, and they would sell to coffee shops in those countries. And this created another revenue stream. Actually, that's now one of our biggest revenue streams, is to retail wholesale. So, those are the main 5. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I want you to be able to take a look at these 5 and just drop in the chat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which one you're most excited about. And I'm just going to continue the presentation, but I want to see this later on, so we can address any points later on. So 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Let me know what is most exciting to you guys.
So just to recap what Vance said, why is this launch a better strategy? Please enter in your choice. 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 5. 1 is flip the model and eliminate risk. 2 is to be profitable and cash flow positive at your launch. 3 is to build a list of ready-to-buy fans and a long-term sustainable brand. 4 is to establish product and brand credibility. And then 5 is to create new opportunities for diversification and scaling. So I'll just give you a second to enter your votes. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. All right. Thanks, guys. And then thanks for your question, Allison. I do see it. We'll get to that at the end. All right. Thank you. Let's go. Let's keep going, Vance.
Cool. So we covered the top 5, but there's a whole bunch of other benefits of a Kickstarter launch. This might be difficult to see, but there's things like if you have a cool product idea and you want to validate it, it doesn't make sense to launch it on Amazon if it's not competing with an existing category with a high search volume. You can launch and validate a product idea on Kickstarter, and all you need is the prototype. You're able to do things like get opportunities for viral sharing. So campaigns that are successful get a lot of virality, so you can start building your brand. So a lot of things, I don't cover those, but the top 5 are the ones that we mentioned. So I want to see your answers later on about why, what you like about those. So let's talk about how we're going to execute this. So we developed a process called the Launch Accelerator Blueprint, and this is what has really allowed us to be successful with our launches. And I'm going to go through this process so we can go into detail about how it's executed. So with me, my first Amazon product launch was a success. I got really overly ambitious, and I said the next year I'm going to launch 12 products. And because of this, I ran into a lot of challenges. Most of the products, 10 of them failed. And I went through all the standard things like giveaways, pushing big with the influencers, really, really aggressive with PPC. But the biggest challenge that I experienced is the things that we just talked about, not building a real brand. So people didn't care that I launched product 2, 3, or 4, made no difference. But it was also the biggest challenge was not having a reliable cash flow positive strategy. I kept running out of cash. I didn't realize that I needed more it was just bad business practices. And I didn't have enough money to pay for ads and become profitable. I just kept coming worse and worse into the hole with cash. And this became a huge issue for me when I was really trying to scale on Amazon. But eventually, what that led me to is being able to discover Kickstarter, and that allowed me to have a lot of success in terms of being able to launch successful products, and that eventually led me to having a lot of friends in the e-com world ask me, how did you guys do this? And eventually, I helped a lot of people raise over $7 million in successful launches, and this is what this process is based on. So this is called the Launch Accelerator Blueprint, and we'll talk about why this works and how to execute this. So 6 main steps. I'm going to start with the first one. I'm going to spend the most time on this first one because I get a lot of questions about this. This is determine your USP. So USP is essentially the way that you're going to hook people to get interested in your product. So what's important to note is that you don't need to make something completely 100% brand new. A lot of people are launching improvement products, which is stuff that you do it on Amazon by improving a feature, improving the way that you kind of use the product. This is enough for you to be able to launch your Kickstarter. You're not going to want to focus on something that's launched 100 times already. But the idea is that you want to create something that's at least a little bit of an improvement. And I'll talk about the different ways that you can do this and how this might actually be less work or more work depending on where you're focusing. So this is an example of a cocktail shaker that a category I was really interested in, the kitchen category, when I first launched on Amazon. These guys didn't really do anything special. But they raised about $470,000 on Kickstarter. They just kind of position this as a high-end cocktail shaker. So the question I get is also which niches does this work in? So these are campaigns that we've worked with to help launch in the apparel category, in stationery, coffee, kitchen, and food, like in makeup and beauty, all sorts of different categories. They all work. So we're just going to talk about how this is going to work for you. So the first step is to determine your USP. So there's 3 main categories. We just call them edges. So edges are different ways that your product will stand out and how you can position them and to be successful with that. So the first edge is product positioning. This is the easiest one. The edge 2 and 3 are, I'll go into that a little bit more detail afterwards, but it's a small design upgrade or a small functional upgrade. And the last one is a little bit harder, which is an advanced functional upgrade. So this is, when I say difficulty, it means how difficult it is for you to do this with the product. So let's start with positioning. So positioning is essentially changing the way that you present the product concept or idea, or emphasizing a product or benefit in a different way. So here's an example. I was really interested in the travel category when I wanted to launch on Amazon, and travel packing cubes were that category for me. So travel packing cubes, there's 12, who knows, like 20, 30 pages of travel packing cubes. These guys launched a travel packing cube that's not so different than travel packing cubes that exist on Amazon. But they focused on the 2-sided travel packing cube. So these exist on Amazon, but what they did was they chose to position this benefit in a different way. So they said that one side was for clean clothes and the other side was for dirty clothes. Great concept. And they focused on the fact that this was going to save you 40% more space. So these people really, really made a big difference in the way that they were able to position this and really connected with the audience that was traveling, because they saw this as a way that would really benefit them if they had this cube. So they raised almost $280,000 on Kickstarter on their launch. This is another product that's extremely common, also on Amazon, which is the blackout curtains. So what these people did was they just took the blackout curtains and just positioned it for travel. So these were travel portable blackout curtains, and these guys raised over $290,000. This is another interesting one. These are no-shoe socks. So this has existed in kind of like the athletics category. People use this for hiking or use this for lots of interesting kind of outdoor sports. These people took pretty much the same product, but they positioned it to a new audience. So this is the third point of product positioning, presenting it to an interesting or different audience. They just presented it to females and said that this was they called it after socks. So this is what you would wear after a night of going out, so you don't have to do the walk of shame or just walking around your heels in the morning. And this raised 90,000 euros. This is one of my favorite examples of product positioning. This is a desk toy, the wooden desk toy they call the Zen Egg. So this could have been any type of like paperweight or something you just put on your table because it looks kind of cool. But they position this as a meditation tool. They position this as something that allows you to make time for yourself and just to appreciate the moment that you're in. And so they turned this desk toy into a meditation tool and positioned it in a really powerful way that connected with that audience and raised over $110,000 on Kickstarter with their launch. So with this first edge, you can do this with virtually any product. You don't need to create anything with your product differently to make this something that connects with an audience. So this is why level 1 is edge 1 is the easiest. So level 2, medium, means that you're doing some type of modification to the product. Most Amazon sellers that are launching products now fall into this category. So with Edge 2, you're either making a small upgrade to either the materials, so lots of people do this by changing the materials, or making it look a little bit different. So this is a good example of chopsticks that have existed for thousands of years. This is obviously not a new product, but they changed wooden chopsticks into titanium chopsticks. And they raised $270,000. And I don't know what aerospace grade titanium means, but they chose to position this. So they combined this with the first edge and positioned this in a unique way that made this seem really, really cool. So over 270,000 by just changing the materials on an existing product. These guys, we worked with the launched their campaign maybe a few months ago. They did a combination of a few of these things. They changed the material. So the regular travel towels are usually made from microfiber. They changed it to bamboo cotton. And they had this really cool kind of like outside little case. So they changed the way the towel looked, and they changed the material. So the aesthetic design and materials, and this became really cool. And they were an eco-friendly brand, so they really kind of positioned themselves with the Edge 1 to be a strong eco-friendly brand that is focused on travel and outdoors. This would be Edge 3, which is a small functional upgrade, and this is a good example of bundling. So they changed the materials, they made it look a lot more sleek, and then they bundled a whole bunch of these packing cubes together. You can tell I like packing cubes, and they made a set of 7. So this one raised over 280,000 just with well-designed packing cubes that are an improved material. And another example of a small aesthetic design and material upgrade is these guys made a folio essentially. So essentially, it's one of these things you carry around where you take notes. Obviously, not a new product anywhere, but they position this towards. First of all, they changed the material. It looks really nice. It's this cool leather, and they position this with Edge 1 towards like entrepreneurs or people that were successful business people. So they said this is for visionaries and for people that are doing big things in the world. So they raised over 70K with just a really standard folio for carrying notes. So advanced functional upgrade, I don't want to spend too much time on this, is where you want to create something that's like what we call like a more significant improvement, essentially. So you're changing the way something is going to be used. And this is an example of a fold-out cutlery set where you would you kind of twist off the cutlery so that you can use this in a way that's portable, so you don't have to use plastic utensils and cutlery. This is another example. One of my favorite campaigns, because I'm a plant nerd, they created a planter that you can grow the plants on the outside. So this one, crazy campaign, one of my favorites, raised over $6 million for this concept. It's really cool. So step 2, making your campaign. This is what I've hinted at earlier. So to launch a campaign, you're going to need 3 key brand assets. And you know about these because if you launch an Amazon product, you know that you need photos, copy. Some people are debating whether or not video is needed for Amazon nowadays. I don't debate this at all. I think it's 100% necessary if you're going to be competitive. So if you're going to need these 3 things, these are all the things you're going to need to launch on Amazon and Shopify, but you're just investing in what I recommend is super high quality assets so that you can use these in the future for all of your assets on different e-commerce platforms, on your website. If there's social media that you're posting, in ads, like all this stuff, you're going to invest in these assets so that you can make sure that you're successful on all the platforms that you choose to launch. But when you launch on Kickstarter, you have these available so that you can move on to the other platforms really easily.
Vance, can I ask a quick question? Are you going to talk about the costs of creating these videos, these high quality assets?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough question, so I can try to answer that later as well. But that's generally a question that I have. It's going to depend on the category, and there's a lot of factors that depends on that, so we can try to address that later on as well.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, so campaign basics, you have to set a funding goal. So this is an all or nothing funding goal. So your idea is that if you can't hit this, you're not going to be successful. So we usually recommend 10 to 30,000, not any higher than that, but it's going to be dependent on your product category and depending on your goals as well. And like I mentioned before, maximum 60 days. So we usually try to keep our campaigns between 30 and 45 days because that's going to perform the best in terms of what we've seen from thousands of campaigns. So building your list, this is extremely important. We talked about the importance of why you want to build your list because this is going to be essentially your asset. Having a list is going to really, really significantly increase the value of your exit, but also at the same time, having a list is going to increase the lifetime value of your customers. So if you invest $10 to acquire a customer and they purchase one item from you for $50, the lifetime value is $40. But if they purchase your product 2 or purchase product 3, or they refer one friend or somebody who's excited or post on social media and then somebody buys it, you might see $200, $300, $400 from that exact same customer. And that's the value of building a list. So for us, we focus on 2 main categories when it comes to launching a campaign. We focus on what we call ideal future customers, so IFCs. And these are the people that are going to be eventually purchasing your product. Every category is going to be different. So we focus on trying to find out where these people hang out, whether it's on online communities, like Facebook groups or Reddit communities or forums, or if they're live communities and you have access to those are awesome ways to start building your community that way. And there's obviously paid ways to do this as well, but we like to focus on free which is essentially focusing on communities and where people hang out from our ideal future customer audience. The second one is we focus on influencers. So these are people that can bring credibility or traffic to your campaign in whatever way possible. So in our coffee product, we focused on people that had credibility. So social media influencers are not just hot Instagram models or people that are posting fashion or food stuff. We have 5 categories of influencers that we focus on, including industry experts and community admins, people that give you access to different audiences or access to credibility. So we really focus on having those types of people to support the launch, because that's going to make a massive, massive difference. So launching strong, like Amazon, we need to make sure that we are successful within the first 48 hours, maximum 48 hours. So we want to get as many people on our list as possible. So we don't wait to hopefully be successful once the once the campaign launches. We're building a list in advance of the ways that from the categories that I just talked about, so that they're going to be purchasing when we launch. And usually the campaigns that we work on are funded within the first six hours, maximum 12 hours. But ideally, you're hitting the goal within 24 to 48 hours at the latest. And that allows Kickstarter to say, hey, let's start ranking this project organically and have other people see this, because this is a project that is doing well and it deserves our attention. And during a campaign, you'll want to take advantage of PR as well. This is optional, but we highly recommend using this opportunity to be able to drive traffic from external sources. But at the same time, you can use this as a way to build credibility during the campaign, so that you're able to use this as brand credibility even after the campaign is over. And right away, you can leverage your community. So we talked about this a few times earlier. But once these people back your project, you can contact them right away. So you can get them involved in sharing your campaign, getting them to share on social media, telling them to invite a friend, lots of things that you can do there. This is just an example of how engaged this audience is. In our first campaign, we had about 3,000 backers at this point, and we sent out a little bit over 3,000. We sent out a survey that said, hey, tell us a little bit more about you, what you like about coffee, your coffee behaviors, what types of products you like to see. Within less than 2 weeks, we saw 2,400 responses. This is how engaged this audience is, and this is how these people can contribute to not only suggesting products for you, but helping you scale and grow your brand later on. And of course, after the campaign closes, you're going to get your money within 50 days, like I mentioned earlier. We like to move over to Indiegogo, so we have a part of our strategy that allows you to sell to the next platform that I mentioned earlier. And in many cases, you can sell 20% to 100% more inventory even before you get your more orders before you get inventory. So our campaign on Kickstarter raised 220,000, and we moved to Indiegogo and raised almost another 100,000 on Indiegogo to be able to have all these sales before we had the inventory arrive in our warehouse. And of course, you want to deliver this because these are your customers now. You want to make sure that you fulfill your promise to them, because they're going to be the people that support your brand in the future. So make sure that you keep them happy. And the last step is probably the most important step, and this is the huge value that we get from Kickstarter, is we want to start establishing our brand. So this is something that Amazon sellers don't really think about, because they're very, very narrowly focused on reviews on Amazon. But to grow a real brand, it's important for us to get publicity and exposure in other areas. So getting user-generated content is what's really important, because it allows us to have presence on channels like Instagram or YouTube. We launched our product over 2 years ago on Kickstarter. Up until this point, we still get on average 2 to 5 Instagram shares that tag us every single day. So we're getting lots of organic traffic, lots of organic sales from these organic traffic. And this allows us to have a whole other traffic source that's allowing us to get sales that we don't have to pay for on a regular basis. And people are telling their friends, people are finding out of this. So we want to use our community to be able to spread the word about our brand, but also these people are going to be able to suggest products for us. Our second product was actually a suggestion from our community to say, hey, why don't you look into creating a new cup for us? And that's what eventually led us to creating the cups from our second campaign. So that's it. And I'm going to show you a few really quick case studies to give you an idea of what's possible within this model. So Peak Design is one of the they're like the Lebron James or the Tiger Woods of the crowdfunding industry. They launched 10 campaigns. Almost on average, they launched 1 or 2 campaigns a year. It started with one guy in his basement who created a camera accessory piece that allowed you to strap your camera to keep it safe. Over time, he's raised 33 million in successful launches and over 130,000 fans that he's developed. So over time, bigger and bigger campaigns, 7-figure launches, and these are the launches. And he goes on to scaling these later on. He expanded to travel accessories, relaunched new versions of his previous products, and eventually, his most recent campaign was an 8-figure launch. One of his most recent ones was a tripod that he launched. And this is something that's not very easy to launch. This is something that only the big, massive camera companies can launch in the past, but they were able to launch this and become extremely successful with this. And now they're selling on Amazon. They have over 700,000 visitors to their website every month. So this is organic traffic. Some of it is paid, but most of it is organic. And in 2019, they had over, in a podcast interview, they talked about having almost about $70,000 in revenue in 2019. Another smaller example, these guys create a back brace and back accessories for posture. 3 campaigns, $2.9 million and 47,000 fans. They use this publicity to go to Shark Tank and got funding there. And they got a lot of publicity all across the board. So now they sell on Amazon, their own website, they sell on TV, and lots of third-party retailers. And I don't want you to think that all campaigns have to be massive. This is an example of a company that launched in the really competitive organic beauty space. One campaign, $40,000, 805 backers. And from there, they grew to Amazon, lots of third-party online retailers, and now selling on their own website. So they do on average, they were a small team of 2. They grew to 20 team members, and now they're selling about 400K, half of it on Amazon, half of it off Amazon. So that's a lot of stuff. I try to condense as much as possible. So I want to get a gauge of where everyone's at. Are you excited about what we talked about so far? Are you overwhelmed? If it's okay with you, Gary, I'd love to be able to share a little bit about the bonuses, and then we can go into Q&A.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So thank you guys for sticking around. You have a lot of patience, so you're going to get rewarded for sticking around here. So we have 2 bonuses that we're offering the 7-Figure Sellers Summit community, which I talked to Gary about. The first one is absolutely free. They're launch hack and resources that allow you to essentially consider what's going to be necessary for you to launch your next product using crowdfunding. So there's a video training series and a few guides and a few checklists that's going to help you with your launch. So I'm going to give you the link to that in a second. But this is the first thing that you can get as a free resources, handful of resources that will help you with your next launch if you're considering using pre-orders and crowdfunding as a model. So this is absolutely free. We'll put up the link in 1 second. The second bonus is an opportunity to join our case study group of the Launch Accelerator blueprint. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about what that is. So the case study program is going to be happening later this month. It's going to be starting in about 2 weeks. So what our goal is that the Lab Masterclass is what we've developed as a structure that we used to offer to our consulting and agency clients that had 100% success rate. So what we've used this to launch over $7 million of pre-orders and 1.3 million of our own campaigns. So here within the Lab Masterclass, you're going to be able to learn everything you need to plan, develop, and launch your next product through crowdfunding before scaling to your platform of choice. To be able to qualify for this, you need to meet these requirements. You have to have these requirements. You're launching a product in the next 8 months, and you're launching a physical product that's B2C, so consumer product. So it can't be B2C. It can't be an app, software, book, anything like that, because our process focuses on physical products. And you really need to be able to want to scale this product to scale your brand. So the opportunity is essentially we're looking for a few people to join our case study group to work with in the next few months to create successful case studies. And the program outcome is extremely simple. We want to take you from the idea that you have all the way to launch and to prepare you to sell over 30 to 50,000 in pre-orders for this upcoming launch. But the focus is around establishing the foundations for your brand while building a community of people that are going to support you with your product and your launch. So if you're interested, I'm going to put up this link in 1 second, but we're accepting up to 12 people. We have already 3 people enrolled so far, but we'd love to have you if you're a fit. So if you're not sure if you're a fit, you can also just, if you're not sure if your product idea is a fit, you can book a call with us. We're offering 8 calls for the community if you're watching this, you have an opportunity to be a part of the free strategy session to get a call to see if your product is a fit. If not, I'm going to let you know because we want to make sure that we're accepting products that are going to be successful. If you are, we're going to invite you to join our masterclass. You have the option to with a $2,000 scholarship for the 7-Figure Seller Summit community. So, Gary, would you mind helping me to put up the link if that's cool?
Yes, absolutely. Just
perfect. So yeah, it's going to be the same link. So whether you want the first bonus or the second bonus it's the first bonus if you just want some resources. The second bonus, if you're ready to launch your next product and you want to use pre-orders, click on the link and apply for the program, and we'll see if it's a fit for us to work together as a part of the case study program. So note that if you opt in for the second bonus, you'll automatically get the bonus number 1. So you don't need to do both. But bonus number 2 is only if you're ready to take action and launch your next product within the next 8 months, and you want to be a part of our case study program. So that's it. Gary, if you could put up the link and give everyone access to it, it's essentially livemyplayground.com/7FSS, and that'll get you to our bonuses. So that's it. Let's do some Q&A.
Awesome, perfect. Thank you, Vance. That was a excellent journey through like the whole 6-step process of crowdfunding, and I think that it can be very valuable for some sellers. So I encourage you, if you're interested, to follow up. And we've copied and pasted the link in the chat, livemyplayground.com/7FSS, to get Vance's free launch hacker resources, and also an opportunity if you'd like to apply for his mastermind training as well. All right. So I saw that we had a couple questions in the chat, and I also wanted to get to some of the pre-submitted questions as well. So let's go through the questions in the order that they were received. So earlier, Allison had a question. Why not kickstart your second product as well as contacting your loyal followers from your first product launch? That's kind of what you do.
Yeah, that's 100% the idea. So once we build an audience, whether or not it's from our first launch or from other ways, we're going to use them to support our second launch and third launch and fourth launch. And that's what Peak Design did, how they were able to grow this massive international brand that competes with like Sony and these like big camera accessory companies. So it started from one guy in his basement to scale this through multiple launches to continue growing what we call compound interest marketing, to be able to continue building your brand over time and using your existing audience to grow your brand. And that's exactly, you have the right idea, Allison.
Awesome. And Vance, a lot of people had voted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Did you want to go back to that to discuss? Or
let's grab a few more questions if time is going to be
sure. Okay, definitely.
And then we'll jump back to that.
Yeah. So Jerry had a question, and first off, shout out to Jerry Mills. He's an alumni speaker at 7-Figure Seller Summit. So thanks for joining us, Jerry. And it's amazing that our audience, comprises of successful sellers as well. So we're thankful to have you. Jerry asked, "What's your most profitable Kickstarter launch?"
My personal most profitable Kickstarter launch is about 35%, 35% profit on the funds raised. So that was about on my $960,000 campaign. That was about 35% profit on that.
Okay, and roughly, like, where are most of the costs going? Is it to inventory, or is it to marketing, or how does that look?
Yeah, so the most of the costs that people are going to run into for preparing for the launch is going to come from investing in creative assets. So the stuff that you would normally do for photos, copy, video. The only difference is we generally invest a little bit more in video because that's one of the most powerful assets on Kickstarter. So plan to invest a little bit more in video, and then a little bit for building your list and ads. But the great thing about spending money on ads for Kickstarter is after your campaign launches, if your ads are profitable, you can continue spending more money. You don't have to, there's no requirement to continue spending more money if your ads are not doing well. So that's, yeah.
Jerry actually had a follow-up question about ads. I heard that Facebook ads, building up a list is pre-Kickstarter is key. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, building a list is key. There's lots of different ways. Building Facebook ads to build a list is one of the ways. We like to focus on what's really unique about our lab approach is that we like to focus on the free ways as well that allow us to build community and engage with communities that are going to be passionate about what we do. So we have free ways and then we have paid ways. So yes, the list is extremely important. That's how we get the boost in sales and hitting our goal within the first 24 to 48 hours. But there are free ways to do it above and beyond the Facebook ads ways as well.
Excellent. All right. So those are all the live questions. We also had some pre-submitted questions. Would you like to go to those, or did you want to review the?
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do the pre-submitted questions. Yeah. All
right. So so we talked a little bit about costs. Can you tell me how much does it cost roughly to run a campaign? Just in general for people to ballpark.
Yeah, it's really hard to in general, but I'll tell you what it depends on. So it depends on your product category, but what it most depends on is the cost of creating your assets, and that's really important because if you're creating videos that require like lots of shooting in cool locations, like 3D animations, that can cost a lot more money than something that just costs, like if we're just shooting with like a few models and like in one environment. So the biggest investment of cost usually when it comes to assets is creating the video. So depending on how complex your video is and where you're shooting the video. So if you're shooting in like, we have people shooting in Ukraine, for example, or shooting in Bali, that's going to be a fraction of the price of shooting in like US or in Australia, for example. So with that said, I've seen people spend a couple $1,000s in assets all the way up to like 10, 15,000, or maybe a little bit more. But it depends on what how complicated your assets are. But most people are not doing like crazy tech products, so they're not like doing crazy, like these animations or 3D stuff, and that's the stuff that costs a little bit more money. So if you have access to photographers or videographers that you like to work with, maybe you can also be cheaper when it comes to having your own resources that are not like expensive agencies. So that's the biggest cost. And then depending on your,
Excellent. And what about the time frame? We talked a little bit about this before. Some people are asking, we're working towards a Black Friday opening on Amazon. So my question is, can this structure work for a crunched timeline?
Probably not. Probably not if you're looking to launch in the next month or so. That's going to be a little bit challenging. The idea is that we're going to invest quite a bit of time in, creating a list and also community development. So community development can be done as quickly as like 1 to 2 or 3 months. That is the core part of this process, to be able to build that audience that's going to support your product, but also support your brand in the future. So we don't want to rush this part, because this is what's going to allow us to be successful. The other thing that takes time is creating the assets. So that can happen in tandem of the, it can happen at the same time of community development. But the biggest focus is going to be around, if you have a product already, or have a product that's kind of being developed, you're going to be focused on community development. So that can be as early, like as soon as 1 to 3 months that's the time frame for community development.
I see. And Vanessa had a question. In creating the prototype, do you source for a manufacturer that can build this first, so that the prototype listed on Kickstarter is what customers will get?
That's a good question. It really depends on your product category. So we've done both. We source from a lot of different. So for example, with the most recent launch that I did with the coffee glasses, we sourced from a lot of different manufacturers. Eventually, one of them became the supplier. But you can actually, like if you're making apparel, for example, like clothing or like interesting stuff like that, or like packing cubes, you can source from a different supplier and just make sure that it can be done, and then you can end up having a different supplier manufacture it. But we'd recommend that ideally you're able to work out the cost with a supplier that you want to be producing from. But it's very, very possible to be able to source from a supplier that is not your eventual person that's going to be manufacturing your product. That depends on your product category and how comfortable you are with trying to look for a new supplier afterwards. It's recommended, though, that I would push in the direction of trying to find somebody that you can trust to work with, that produces your prototype and can manufacture your first production run. Okay,
excellent. And we had a question submitted about the risk of getting your idea stolen or modified by unscrupulous sellers. What are your thoughts about that? I mean, you're literally giving away like the idea before you start making it, right? So what can you do what can sellers do to protect themselves against that?
Yeah, so this is a great question. I get this question a lot, and I had my product copied by some Chinese company, and they sell it on AliExpress. But nobody's buying that product because people are supporting my brand, and the community I built is really they really like what we do. So people actually showed us that product, and they said, hey, somebody's copying your product. That product is not performing well. What we've built is a brand where people care about what we do. So that's one way that you're protecting it, because I think at the end of the day, people are concerned about having their idea stolen. But we have to recognize that for example, with Apple, these earbuds that I'm wearing right now, well, these are not the Apple ones, but I have Apple earbuds. Apple is one of the richest companies in the world, and they put out the earbuds. They have all the patents, everything they need to protect their products, but people are copying their products. The richest company in the world cannot enforce people not copying their products with those earbuds or whatever it is that they're trying to create. And this is important to recognize that there's no real way to protect your idea other than with patents, which we encourage you doing if you think you have something really unique. But the idea is that you're going to build a community of people that really support what you do. This is no different than launching on Amazon or launching on Shopify. If somebody sees your idea and they like it, they're probably going to copy it anyways if they're really, really motivated to do that. But the thing that you have protecting you is being able to create a community of people that really support you. And we've seen this in a lot of situations where sellers launch cool products, and other people try to copy them, maybe Chinese sellers or other people like that, and their community comes back to support them. They're like commenting on the ads or like tagging the original creators and saying like, hey, you know what, these people are copying you, this is a knockoff. Your value here is creating a strong brand, protecting it with patents if you think it's valuable. But at the end of the day, you really want to make sure that you know, you're doing a good job of developing your community, because these are the people that are going to support you. But at the end of the day, you can't, the only way to enforce people not copying your products is to have a patent and having lots of funding to be able to sue them or to get lawyers involved if you're concerned about this. And just let's just look to Apple and like all these other really big companies that even with unlimited budgets virtually, they still can't stop Chinese knockoffs. So that's not really the concern here. It's no different than launching on Amazon, Shopify, or whatever platform that you choose to launch on, where people start liking your idea.
Yeah, excellent. In other words, Vance is building a moat around his business with his community, where they actually support his brand rather than buy the knockoffs. And you know, so I feel like, you know, even if Apple can't protect against copycats, I mean, there's only so much you can do. But it's also important to go on the offense, right, to build the community of raving fans. Vance, you know, all of this sounds great. You're raising millions of dollars, but can you tell us what's the flip side? You know, what's the catch? Can you tell us about a time when a launch didn't go as planned, and what did you learn from that? I think that would be beneficial for our audience as well.
Yeah. So this is, I think this is a really good question, because launches can be unsuccessful, and the biggest reason why we see launches are unsuccessful is that they don't prepare and build their audience in the pre-launch. And building that relationship with your audience and your community before the launch is the most important thing, because if you don't do this, you can't just expect people to show up to this campaign. The catch is that you have to be willing to invest in building a community, like a real relationship with your community before the campaign launches. And if you would make this investment and you see the value in this investment, this is going to be something that pays dividends not only for the product launch, but it pays dividends for your brand over time. So this is one of the most important things, one of the biggest mistakes. And the second thing that we focus heavily on in the lab approach is that we focus on getting feedback from real customers before the product launches. So we're not launching this and hoping that it does well. Before the launch, we're talking to people and we're talking to customers about what they think about their product, what's the best way to present the product, what are the benefits that they care about the most. So we're not just guessing which benefits that we think people will like the most. That's going to be super important. So the biggest lesson is develop your audience, but at the same time, make sure that you are interacting with your audience to get feedback, because these are going to be the real customers that purchase your product. So it's super, super important that you do this before the launch and not launch and hope for the best. So interact with your audience, build a relationship, and interact with your audience to get feedback before the actual launch. And this is something that's pretty unique to our approach. And I think, you know, even if you do this yourself, I would encourage you to make sure that if you're building your list and launching your product, that you do your best at interacting and engaging with your audience, and at the same time, really involving them in getting their feedback to make sure that you're doing the right thing before you launch.
Awesome. Okay, great. And we have time for one last question. And Robert had asked, do you do this in the UK as well? I would start in the US and then move to the UK for marketing reports. What do you think?
Yeah, Robert, this is a great question. And I think you can pretty much launch globally unless there's a reason why you don't want your product to ship globally. So Kickstarter is a global platform, so you can sell immediately to everyone. Certain times you might want to restrict countries that have weird shipping issues, or like countries that you don't want to sell in because of high shipping costs. But you can immediately sell to everyone on Kickstarter. So generally, if you don't have an issue with shipping, there's not much of a reason to limit your ability to grow your brand. Because you can start getting customers and you can start building your audience in different communities outside of the US as well.
Excellent. All right. And for those of you guys that joined late, yes, the replay will be available. If you did sign up to register, you will get a reminder email in your inbox with the replay. All right. So with that, I'd like to thank Vance for your excellent training today, how you were able to raise 1.3 mil without investing $1 on inventory. I hope that this is helpful to everyone that joined us today. And again, I'd just like to highlight Vince's special bonus with his resources to help you. And if you would like some more additional help, he also has the mastermind training, and you can apply through the link there. So www.livemyplayground.com/7FSS. And just to be transparent, I am an affiliate of Vance's program. So if you do join, I will get a small commission. It helps to pay our bills and helps to buy some coffee for me. I do need my coffee to keep going. So I appreciate that, guys. All right. So anything else we should cover today, Vance, before we go?
I mean, I think we did a good job, but I think the last thing I'll say is, well, first of all, apply for the program if you're launching a product in the next 8 months, and if you're launching a physical product that's consumer-based. If you're looking to use pre-orders, apply for the program. If not, just get the free resources, and we're going to send you a lot of cool stuff that's going to help you with considering what it takes to get pre-orders. But at the end of the day, even if you don't work with us, I think it's so important to consider, like as Amazon sellers, as e-commerce entrepreneurs, to diversify and really build a strong brand with a strong audience. So it's so important to not rely on only one channel, and it's so important to have access to your community and your audience, because this is what's going to allow us as sellers to be able to create successful, sustainable businesses. So focus on doing that no matter what product category you're in, like no matter when you're launching next. I think that's going to be one of the most important things that allow us to all be successful in the long run, is to focus on that.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing the words of wisdom, Vance. And Allison says, thanks, guys. Great presentation. And thank you, Allison. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And we will see you guys at the next session. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.